Hello and welcome to the second video in our work experience module, and this one is all about how to do the cover letter. So the cover letter is a very important document. It'll be required by pretty much any employer at the point of application, and what they really are is your chance to make a good personalized first impression. So cover letters are basically you at a glance, and it's really important that you have some follow some do's and some don'ts. So I'm going to get you to again use the format that I'm going to show you and make sure that you submit it with 0 errors in order to pass this module. That's one of the other requirements. Cover letters change with every single job for which you apply. They are normally required when you are applying for a job within an agency where you have not worked before. You might not be required to do a cover letter if you are moving within an agency. Let's say you are going for a posting from a temporary position to a permanent position, or from part-time to full-time. In most of those cases, you won't be expected to do a cover letter. But anytime you're applying for a job for an agency where you have not worked before, this is your way to do this. And again, having the spelling, the formatting, and the language all clear and clean demonstrates a lot to the employer. It's called a cover letter because it literally gets looked at before your resume. So it must change for every employer, and some of you will not really be looking for work yet or won't know. So I'd like you to fictionalize your letter by looking at a local employer and creating a sample one. You will not be required to mail it for real. If you don't choose to apply to the place, then you'll simply have a format that you can adjust or amend later on when you do go looking for work. So you should always personalize it. It should definitely reflect who you are, and boilerplate going on the internet and downloading one that somebody else has created is a terrible idea. You have to remember that employers sometimes get hundreds of resumes in a year, and yours has to stand out. If it stands out because it looks like all the other ones, or it looks like you've gotten it from somebody else, then not only are you not likely to get that job, but it's very likely you'll have difficulty getting them to look at future resumes. It should always be concise. It should always fit on one-sided page cleanly. Anything more than that, and you're defeating its purpose. So here's some sample documents for you. This is the template I've created for you. And again, like the other document for the resume, it's available both on the assignments page as well as in the documents page. And again, just like the resume, you're going to simply highlight the section you want to write over by double-clicking or by dragging. Here's what it looks like when you drag, and you just simply type over it. If the person fax numbers are kind of old and you don't necessarily have one anymore, you're going to remove it. Now, this is the contact information for the employer that you're applying to. And this letter is a modern block format letter, meaning it's a professional letter. We don't use the same style of friendly letter you might have learned in grade 9. It's got to have a few little differences that tell the story. One of the things that this has is just the name of the employer here. But what if you wisely reached the agency in advance? Perhaps you phoned and spoke to the HR manager, or perhaps you were given a heads up by somebody in the community and you actually spoke with somebody there in person. If you know it's going to a direct person, you can put that person below here by simply typing the words attention, and then you can put the name of the person or the name of their position if you'd want. So Director of Human Resources or John Smith, whatever works there. Down here, you're going to put the date that you created the letter on, and again, you must make sure it's always new. And here you're going to put the information that is part of the posting. You'll see that in the sample one. Each of the following 4 paragraphs are very specifically used to create a particular answer to a question. And it's really important that you stick within this. We'll talk about it more in a minute. In this salutation or greeting, you're normally going to use the surname of the person. You only use the first name if you genuinely know the person. And I don't consider knowing to mean that you had one conversation with them over the telephone. So being overly familiar is not a good strategy. It's better to be more formal here and not need the formality than to be informal and to have used and to have needed to be more formal. So you're going to have each of these particular subjects. In the first one, you're going to be very technical. You're going to simply talk about whatever it is that is asked for in the ad, the qualifications, and you're going to specifically state what you're looking for. Notice that we want a maximum of 3 sentences. Paragraph 2 is all about why are you qualified. Qualified means experience and education. It means your credentials. It does not mean your personal characteristics. That doesn't get put in here yet. It's really important because if you put it in this part, you're telling people there's nothing much I can tell you about me in terms of what I've learned or I've done. I'm going to start by telling you how wonderful I am, and that's not going to have the impression that you would like. Again, 2 to 3 sentences. Don't be afraid to say things in 2. And paragraph 3, now personal characteristics. What is it about you? Maybe it's that you have a family connection or a personality trait, or you just know something about that agency's values. How do I find that out? By looking their website up, by speaking to people that work there, by communicating with the HR person by phone, getting a sense of what it is they're looking for. And here's where you can talk about those things. They'll be happy to tell you what kind of person they like. And here's where you talk about it. Again, no more than 2 to 3 sentences. And finally, we're going to close in paragraph 4. We're going to close with confidence. Just a simple statement saying, thank you for considering me. And you're going to give them your contact information, the best way to reach you, your phone number, your email, or if you're only reachable by one of those, if you're not able to answer the phone throughout the day because you work someplace where your phone is turned off, make sure you don't offer your phone number as your preferred way of being contacted. Here, 2 sentences. Less is more. And you're going to say sincerely or yours truly or something very simple there. You're not going to get into something fluffy or personal sounding. Type your name below, and then you're going to write in this space later on. And again, you can use the trackpad, or if you prefer, you can always print this out, write it, and scan it. Remember, you can send a PDF file. And this simply is a little code that means you've attached it to something else. Enclosure means it's attached to something else. And so in this case, it's with your resume, and so that's what you're simply saying. And again, here we are. This is the modern block. The old-fashioned block, you would have had 2 address blocks at the top of the page, but here we've got it in a footer. And we've already shown you how to do a footer in the other video, so I won't repeat that here, but you update your information. Make sure it's all current and right. I literally have had people who wondered why they weren't getting called, and they literally had forgotten to put their contact information into their cover letter. All right, so let's take a look at a sample one. So here's one I've created. I'll put this on the site. Oops, I see a mistake right off the bat here, so let's fix that. All right, so here is a fictitious agency called Vashon Community Services. I'm going to pretend that I've spoken to Ms. Deanna Kilgard, who is the HR person. So I've added attention. Put the address. Notice the formatting, little things. Like there's no comma that comes after some of these things. Here there's a comma, but you don't put a comma after Manitoba. Okay, so this is where I want it to be fixed. Notice I've got my address. Notice I don't have anything that is italicized. This is the fax number for that agency. Maybe I want to put the word fax there in front. That's good. Here's the date I wrote the letter, and here's where I've put what's called the reline or the regarding line, so that people know exactly what I'm applying for. Well, this is the name of the posting. Here's the number, and here's the website where I found it, or newspaper, or posting board. Or I can even reference a telephone conversation. So it might say residential community support worker posting as per our conversation of May 17th or something like that. Okay, I don't like that extra space there. I'm going to get rid of it. All right, now notice tiny little detail, but it shouldn't be a semicolon or a comma. A formal letter, a professional letter has a colon. Okay. Now, I write first paragraph, what I'm looking for. Not very exciting. I'm ready to express my interest in the residential community support worker position. You could say, please consider my application for, or I am submitting my resume for, or I am replying to the posting. But it has to be something that's pretty much directly saying what you're looking for. And, I see another mistake here. See, this is what I want you to do. This parenthesis should come here, not after the word posted. Okay, I am interested in working I got another typo, on a full-time and permanent basis with Vashon Community Services. but I would also be open to part-time or casual employment. Really good idea to do this. Say, if I don't get the job, don't throw my resume away. Think about plugging me in someplace else. And I talked about the qualifications, and in this case, I'm fictitiously pretending we're in the posting. Class 4 license, CPR, and prior experience. I literally said, I have what you're looking for. And I can tell you that when I worked in HR, we would look at a resume for 20, 30 seconds before we would set it aside. And the very first thing I would do is take a highlighter or a pen, open up the cover letter, and start circling or highlighting the areas in the cover letter where the person told me they had the qualifications. Or if they didn't tell me that, I'd make note of it. And I only looked at the resumes that told me there was something in them worth looking at. And if then I went through all that pile and nothing was there, or I didn't have enough, then I might have gone back and looked at those other people. But often I would set aside the resumes of people who weren't as good at telling me their qualifications and move on to the ones that did. You have to remember, you're not just competing against that empty position. You're competing against a lot of other people who you'll never meet who also want that job. And you have to look better than them and make it as easy for that hiring person to like you as you possibly can. The next paragraph is about qualifications. And again, I'm saying things like my experience and my particular qualifications in terms of education that matter. I've already said some things here. I'm not going to repeat them, but I am going to talk about other things. So here I did my practicum with Vashon. Oh, but I also noticed that I have some formatting issues. These should all be capitalized. I'm going to go back and say that. So I've said I have a strong understanding of the model because I worked there. I'm a graduate of Riverside College's Community Support Worker Educational Assistant Program. And that means that I have these skills, okay? So that's what we're talking about here, is skills and knowledge, or certifications and credentials. When we get into the third paragraph, you'll notice, by the way, I gave you up to two sentences to 3 sentences. Here, count the periods, 1, 2 sentences. Here, 1 and 2 sentences. Less is more. I'm very well suited to be a part of the team at Vashon because I am innovative and flexible. Notice that I started with qualified here and well suited here. This is your personal characteristics. Now I'm saying something about myself, and it's difficult for us to do this because we're so used to the idea we're not allowed to brag. But when it comes to applying for jobs, it's one of the few times you're supposed to say good things about yourself. But I also made it clear that I didn't just get this information from myself. In this sentence, I talked about my coworkers. And I said that they told me that I inspire and motivate them. And I'm known for my warmth and enthusiasm. Now, even though I've only got 2 sentences, really I've got kind of 3 things here. And this is actually something I want you to be careful about overdoing. You notice that I've actually ended up putting 6 ideas here. But they go together. Inspiration and motivation go together. Innovation and flexibility go together. Warmth and enthusiasm go together. If it looks like I'm just trying to cram a laundry list of things into the paragraph, it loses poignancy. So even though I've got 2 sentences, I can still see ways that I might make this an even more poignant or focused cover letter. Finally, my last paragraph. I closed by saying I look forward to hearing from you, or I look forward to having an interview, something that says I'm being confident. Thank you so much for considering my resume. You know what? I don't like the words so much. They sound too casual. I'm going to get rid of them. I want to sound more professional. Thank you for considering my resume. I can most easily be reached at, you know what? I'm not going to be reachable at this phone number during the day. So I'm going to just say this, and then I'm going to make a note of checking my email throughout the day. Oh, I need a period at the end. Now, my email address has got to be something that doesn't look unprofessional. If it was something like, Mr. Teddy Bears, people are going to wonder what that means about me personally. So I created one that's just for work, or I have one where I can change the name. So there's an example of that. And I sign it as my enclosure space. And again, if you don't remember how to sign using your trackpad, you can use this option, draw, and then you can just sign it like this. Okay, but you can also, in this case, print it, sign it, and scan it as a PDF because you're going to use it just the one time. And it's a much more personal thing. All right, so hopefully this is useful to you. I'll be putting this revised version on the website. And again, just what we talked about with the resume. Submit it early, submit it in draft, have other people proofread it. And I've just shown you some of the things that I look for as I go through. Get rid of flowery language. Get rid of overly casual things. Make sure that all capitalizations are there. So go back and fix punctuation. Exactly what you saw me do in this document, in this video, it's what you should do to make sure that your resume is ready to be sent. Okay?